All right, welcome back. I've been a luthier for dang near 40 years, and if you don't believe me, go check our last video. There's a card up here for that. And I'm joined by my father, who has actually 60 years of experience this year.
And counted.
You guys keep on asking questions, which means we got to keep on answering them. Where do you want to start?
Well, start at the beginning.
This is about Ramirez guitars.
Yes.
Why was your first one so bad that it led to this nonsense?
Well, that's hard to put, to take a guitar, specifically say why this guitar didn't work or that guitar. Comparing to what I was expecting, the guitar fell flat in terms of the amount of volume and projection and playability that I was hoping for. So there were a number of issues with the guitar that made it less than ideal for me personally as a player. So that's why I said, well, I'll just keep making guitars, and that's what I did.
Let's back this up. Why did you buy Ramirez? Because when you were in Spain, for like $50 more, you could have had a Fleta. For it was $100 more for a Fleta. For $50 more, you could have had a Barbero,
right?
So on and so forth. So why did you choose the Ramirez?
I chose the Ramirez because my idol, Cypress, was playing. He had 5 Ramirez guitars, 5 Ramirez 1As that he played on. I loved the sound he was getting from them. A friend of mine had bought a Ramirez directly from the Ramirez shop, and this fellow, who couldn't play his way out of a wet paper bag, got the most fantastic guitar. That was the guitar I was hoping that I was going to get. He got this in 1966, and I had just built my first guitar, and comparing the two, it was like night and day. And I thought, well, if this guy could get it through the mail from Ramirez, and that's the guitar he sent him through the mail, sight unseen. Imagine the guitar I'm going to get when I walk into the shop and plunk my receipt down on the table and say, I'm here to pick up my guitar. It was quite a shock that it wasn't the guitar like my friend Joe had gotten. So I had experience playing Ramirez 1As previously, and I was knowing what to expect. The guitar was delivered was not up to the snuff of what I was hoping to get. So that, in a nutshell, was what it was. Why it was that way, there was probably a number of reasons, but that gets into too much technical stuff at this point.
Yeah, suffice it to say, we actually owe all of this and some of our continued existence to Ramirez. So that said, I love Ramirez's, and I still buy them at an unhealthy rate.
Yeah, and the Ramirez guitar, honestly, has probably been one of the biggest influences in my own guitar making and my own designs, because it was the guitar I always aspired to. Because at the time, the two greatest players, Cypress and Andres Segovia, were both touring and concertizing with Ramirez guitars. So they were the most important maker in the world at that time, and that's what I wanted to emulate.
And I should also point out, Cypress did have one of your guitars.
Yes, he did. Yes.
You got both of the greatest guitar players playing on your guitars, with Segovia having 2 of them, and Cypress having 1.
Yeah.
And some guy named Pepe Romero, too.
Yeah, among others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's heard of him?
The guitar that I got for maybe some other player might have been really the ideal guitar. It just wasn't my guitar.
Next question has to do with fretting.
Yes.
Do you ever refret with a thicker Tang to reduce back bow?
Well, no, that's actually counterintuitive. If you use a thicker Tang, it's going to force the neck to back bow even more.
Right.
I think what they were asking is, do we try to adjust the Tang and fret slot to compensate for too much relief or not enough relief? Generally speaking, we don't like to do it that way. That's not a very predictable way to do it.
That said, if we have a guitar that has extra wide fret slots, we will have to take that into account when we are doing that kind of work.
Yes.
So we have to, when we do a refret, we have to take into account the thickness of the Tang, which for us is a standard because we use a standard size fret. And then we take into account the flexibility of the neck and the width of the slot to get to our ideal playability.
In a nutshell, there's an ideal fit of the fret in the slot, and we want to maintain that regardless of the geometry of the neck. So that's the most important thing, is to get the fit of the fret and the connection of the fret to the fretboard itself.
Yes, but using a mechanical device essentially to spread it backwards is not a great idea.
We have devices that can adjust somewhat the fret dimensions themselves before they go in the slot.
Eternally frustrating to use, but very handy when we have to use it. Here's one for you.
Okay.
Where did we get the cabinets in the showroom?
Oh, I built those.
Okay.
I designed those and built those, and it was a lot of work. And those were actually built all in our old Evanston shop, which was a big challenge because it takes a lot of space to assemble those cabinets. But they were all built there, and my design, they're based on Chinese, traditional Chinese furniture.
Next question. This worry about humidity are exclusive for some countries. I live in Brazil. I mean, I don't, but you who asked do. I never had to do anything about this, nor does any of the musicians they know.
Okay, so Brazil, most people in Brazil live within about 100 miles of the coast, and Brazil, for the most part, is very close to the equator, or closer to. So it's pretty humid and tropical in most of the habitated areas of Brazil. If you build a guitar only for that area, you're going to have big problems when that guitar leaves that area and goes to a northern climate with winters and so on.
Which is why we generally kind of stay away from most Brazilian and some South American guitars, because they were not built with the idea of traveling in mind. So if you are buying a guitar that was made in your locale, and you have very consistent humidity, as Brazil tends to do for the most part, you're going to be just fine, and you don't have to worry about it. And I'm going to point to this guitar in particular because this one just came in from Hawaii, which has a very different environment than here. But we also know the person who made this, and he goes under strict humidity controls. We don't have a problem taking a guitar like this in because it's stunning. We know that the humidity is not going to be an issue. I've got a friend who builds in the desert Southwest. He builds at 35% relative humidity. I've seen his guitars up here, and they sound soggy. And it's nothing against him, because I think his guitars are fantastic. It's because we have a lot more humidity, and I say this as it's pouring again.
Just to sum it up in a nutshell, the best strategy is to build a guitar at 50% relative humidity. It's exactly the midpoint of the two extremes of 0 versus 100%. At 50%, no matter where you are on the planet, you probably can make some kind of provision to maintain your guitar close to that 50%, as opposed to trying to maintain it at 70 or 30 or whatever. That's really the bottom line.
It's kind of like a good goalie, to take it to Brazil. A good goalie will stand in the middle of the net waiting to go to one side or another, I presume.
There you go.
YouTube asked us to talk about the World Cup, so this is it. We're talking about the World Cup.
There we go.
Soccer. If you can move to either side, you will have a lot more success than if you're standing at the corner of the goal and they go that way. Thanks for that.
Good question.
That's a great question. We have tools for monitoring and correcting humidity that help us. How did the old luthiers and musicians manage? They didn't.
Well, in some circles, and for instance, in the 18th century,
my hand hurts.
In the 18th century, the French scientists already had figured out humidity. They had ways to measure it that were pretty accurate. I actually have some of the engravings from the Diderot Encyclopedia of 1765 that go through all that. The problem was that until modern air conditioning equipment and that type of devices were invented, the makers, even if they understood the science of it, didn't have any practical way to control it other than closing the window if it was raining in too much outside. That's not humidity control. The other option is to have like a stick or a hygrometer, and they made hygrometers in the 18th century that were pretty accurate.
Basically, you take a linear grain piece of wood where the grain is running vertically. And then you glue a very thin strip of horizontal grain wood. So essentially, they're like this. And if you build it when it's 50% relative humidity, and it's very easy to measure this with a sling hygrometer, when you know that it's at 50% relative humidity, you glue the two together like so. And as this expands, it will flex the outside towards this side, and it'll say it's humid. And as it gets drier, it contracts and pulls it to this side, which means it's drier. So our obsession at this point in time with being, I'm 2% off, it is excessive.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
and,
excessive.
you know,
We do it because we can.
right, yeah.
But
not because we
makers-
have to.
Some makers had devices, and the other option, other than closing the window, was to put off certain operations until the humidity level, according to your thing, was more or less what you considered ideal.
And we know that the Hausers did this.
Hausers did that,
You have
and Taurus
correspondence.
was reputed to have done this also. And I'm sure many other makers, even makers today, I hear.
Yep.
I get comments from makers saying, "Well, I don't do the certain things until the weather's at a certain point."
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, the fact that we have these modern buildings with the insulation and heating, cooling, humidity additives or subtractives.
Yeah.
Or if you're really fancy and extra like us, we actually kind of run them at the same time, so our humidity is held in tension, opposed to catching it when it goes too high or too low. We don't have to worry about it. You know, some makers would not assemble on a day like today, like closing the box, because it's raining. I'd have no problem with it because our humidity is under control. It's within the ±2 that we allow. And, you know, I'm not going to sweat it.
Our time is more valuable than the cost of running our equipment to maintain our humidity.
Right.
So this allows us the option of doing any operation at any moment in time as we need to do it.
Right.
And with wood that's already completely at equilibrium.
Right.
So that's the important part.
Yeah, I mean, I've closed boxes when it was negative 20 degrees outside Fahrenheit.
Right.
And, you know, it could theoretically be, 8% relative humidity in here, but because we have the system we have, we were at 50%.
Right.
And likewise, I've done it when it was 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
It was one of the benefits of moving to our new Wakanda location. We were able to control that even more tightly than I ever did in Evanston.
Yep, it's so tight here, we occasionally have to open up the door to burp the place a little bit. What is wrong with a guitar from the 12th fret up to the 19th? The Harmonics sound muted is one of the new ones with a floating fretboard. Thank you in advance. You are welcome in real time. So why would the Harmonics be muted above the 12th fret?
Well, okay, at the 12th fret you have a harmonic. At the 19th fret you have a harmonic. There are a few others in between. Mostly are not used as a natural harmonic.
Right.
Although they could be a fretted harmonic, so to speak.
I'm just going to extemporaneously think here.
Yes. Okay.
You have a new guitar. Chances are you've been playing it a lot, which means that most likely your bass strings are dead. Okay? And because your bass strings are dead, they are less flexible than they should be, so they aren't able to break into those higher partials to support the harmonics that exist. So try changing your bass strings. You don't have to do your trebles, just try changing the bass strings, and that actually should enhance it. Now, if it doesn't, it may be your guitar, and I don't know what you're playing. I didn't get that kind of information, but, and I don't mean to say this saying that you got a dud of a guitar, because that's not the thought of it at all. But some guitars may not lend themselves well to breaking into those upper harmonics above the body. And I don't think that it's a function of the elevated fingerboard or not. It just could have been the way that it was made.
Well, he said it was a floating fingerboard, which I'm taking to mean that the fingerboard is not attached to the top.
Oh, so like a Stauffer or
Yes, like
style?
or some of the early Hausers.
Yes.
In that case, that extended section of floating fingerboard up there, depending on how massive or thin that is, that could be an insecure transmission of the vibrations from your string at those upper frets, which might make it sound a little plinkier and less harmonic than a guitar where the fingerboard is firmly attached to the top.
Now, let's go for option 3, because we have seen this a lot as well. The fret slots above the body being cut a little bit wider so you don't have to bash the body as hard with a hammer.
I was going to say that, yes.
If you don't have a really solid seat between the fret and the fingerboard, if you are talking about a noted or a fretted note versus a true harmonic where it's just a touch, that fret is kind of doing a little bit of one of these inside of the slot where you are dissipating a little bit more energy than somewhere lower.
And that's
or
very,
higher.
very audible.
Yeah, very audible. I've had people ask about that, so there's also your answer as to why I don't do that.
Yeah.
But thanks for asking. Now, the next question, I'm going to say, why do we do this? I noticed that when you glue in your neck block, you have a tongue on the top, not on the back.
Yes.
Why do you do this?
Yes.
It's so that way we have security of sound transmission. I actually put a larger block under my fingerboard than he does.
Yeah.
Because I really want a solid substance for that vibrational point to rebound off of. So for me, it's all about conserving the rate of restitution of the vibration held within the string.
Yeah.
So that way you get the most amount of return on the energy that you put into the guitar.
And by the way, we should point out, because someone said to me, Richard, that's a fantastic invention. Well, it is, and I wish I could claim credit for it, but I absolutely can't. I had an 1823 Panormal guitar, which was one of the very earliest guitars that had the fingerboard where the fingerboard sat on top of the top as opposed to being flush with the top, which like lutes were. And that guitar had a Spanish foot in it, and the neck extended right up to the interior, as did the guitars of the guitar maker from Torrington, Connecticut.
Oh, yes, James Ashburn.
Ashburn. He also was doing that before Martin.
Check out my article in Vintage Guitar. You may have just missed it. I think it was April of 2004. So
yeah,
it's still modern.
Anywho, the idea has been around for a long time, but many of the Spanish makers didn't take it up, but it came from other makers outside of Spain, and it's a very good improvement for the guitar.
It is, and I think that why a lot of people don't do it is because of the Spanish foot style construction. Because when you if you're using a Spanish foot, you need to have a bit of a hinge at the neck body joint, so that way you can flex the body around, which makes perfect sense. But if you have that block there, you don't have as good of a hinge, and you have to do a lot more pre-planning to get your neck angle to come out right. The way that we build with the Japanese system, the spline, or the modified Japanese system, we can build our top and our body, and we can build our neck, and then we can meet them.
And then we fit the fingerboard to whatever that angle is, and everything is just right there.
Yeah, I was worried that at the clap that we'd end up in the showroom, but apparently I didn't enable that feature this week.
No.
And before we finish, thank you for your continued comments. These are a lot of fun to do. I really enjoy this. He enjoys it. He was actually asking me, hey, when are we going to do another video?
Yeah.
What about cypress resistant moisture? Louisiana bald cypress is considered very hardy and weather resistant to the effects of moisture. Let's discuss this a little bit. Okay?
Yeah.
So this one kind of came out of left field, and I actually had to do some research about the wood because I know the properties of cypress. We work with it all the time, but we work with typically Spanish cypress or Mediterranean cypress.
Cupressus sempervirens.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that they've got an ointment for that.
Yes.
It's always virus.
Yes.
I had to look it up, and first and foremost, I kind of want to know the hardness or the density of it. You know, how does that compare to Spanish cypress?
Yeah.
And it's identical, somewhere between 500 and 510 on the Janka hardness scale. So we're pretty even ground.
Yep.
I'm kind of happy with that. I'm interested. If I can use a local wood that's abundant and sustainable, I kind of want to use it, or at least to try it out. I mean, one of my best guitars I made was for you, which was out of that Monterey cypress.
Right. So it was out there in California.
Yeah, it's literally a weed. They cut those things down so they don't fall on your car, and then they send it through a chipper and you put it around your plants.
Excellent stuff.
Yes, amazing stuff. If I could use it from Louisiana, I would.
Yeah.
But then I started to look up the seasonal movements, and I think where there's a little bit of confusion is this resistance to moisture. I haven't worked with the stuff, so if I'm doing yoga by...
I have.
You have worked with the Louisiana?
I have.
Okay.
I have. I've got a few planks of it over there I bought years ago thinking, oh, I can use this as a substitute for Spanish cypress.
Okay, well, why aren't we? So now here's where I had to do a lot of deeper research that it really...
You should have just asked me. I could have told you.
Why would I turn to the expert when I've got Google? Anyways, it turns out that Spanish cypress is fairly resistant to movement. I mean, I won't say it doesn't move.
Movement with changes of humidity.
Right. Yes. And we're gonna, over whatever the width of the entire back is, from its most saturated point to its least saturated point, Spanish cypress moves about 4.2%. So whatever that width is, multiply that by 4.2%, and that's it's going to blow out the purfling versus it's going to crack itself to oblivion and turn into a toothpick.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4.2%, which is actually fairly substantial, all things considered. Spruce is like 2%, so you know, there's a lot of movement there.
Yeah.
I looked into the Louisiana cypress, and I was absolutely floored as to how much that
I'm
moves.
sure you were. And what was the figure?
10.5%.
Wow.
That's more than twice as much.
What that means is that Louisiana cypress is really going to swell and really going to shrink, which is really going to be a problem.
Right. So if you are a fanatic, if you are militant about your humidity control, and you only play in your bedroom when the weather is good, and you always use your two-way humidity packs, and you have the humidity in your house just so, I'm sure it would make an absolutely incredible guitar as long as the tap tone of that wood is good.
But otherwise, it's better to stick with the traditional material. That's the reason it's traditional.
It is. So with that final question, I want to thank you all for tuning in and asking him. I love this. He loves this. Comment down below on which cypress you prefer. If you like the Louisiana and paying for crack repairs, or the Spanish cypress and paying for crack repairs.
Yeah.
I mean, it does move a lot.
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you so much. I'll see you next time.